Oh, hello there. I was just enjoying my morning cup of tea and thinking about the collapse of the capitalist empire and how that will set us all free. But since you're here, let me introduce myself. I'm Liz Watkin and I own Open Coven, which is a website and sort of business, but not really at this point. I am also a lefty embroiderer. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you. I'm just going to move this so that it doesn't distract you. I am left-handed, as you saw with me drinking from my delicious cup of tea. That is harsh on the palate. A little bit like the overturning of Roe versus Wade that seems somehow imminent in this United States of our Americas. Anyway, as I said, I'm a lefty embroiderer. First of all, I use my left hand, and secondly, I'm extremely politically left-leaning. Now, back in the day, that would have branded me a witch. And guess what? I am one, so it's all good. Anyway, we're not here to talk necessarily about how our human rights have been horribly eroded in the name of greed and fear. We are going to talk about transferring embroidery patterns, which is a little bit more pleasant for a early rainy morning. So let me posit to you a situation that maybe you've come across. You are looking at a beautiful embroidery pattern and you think, I'd like to try that, give it a go. But then you look at the instructions and it says, transfer this pattern. Or it says, transfer this pattern using your chosen transfer method. So what is that? How do we do it? Well, I'm going to sit at this ridiculously small table and with a very wide lens, and we're going to go through some of the most popular ways of transferring embroidery patterns. Sound good? Okay, let's get started. And let's try to bury that deep-seated fear of our impending doom until we're done with our work. Here we are again with various transfer methods for embroidery. You're probably thinking, wow, that's an incredibly small table. Does she really work on this on a regular basis when she's doing her fibre arts and embroidery that communicate dissent and embrace the occult? And the answer is no, I don't. This is a very small table that is just for the purposes of sharing with you in an empty room, talking to an iPad, which is not bizarre and unnatural feeling at all in any way. So transferring embroidery patterns is why we're here. And it's an important skill to have because when Roe versus Wade does get turned over and abortions become illegal and cis women or people with uteruses are forced to become handmaidens, it's a skill you're going to need because given how many children there will be in the world after that, we're going to have to start sewing our own clothes. Okay? And so this is an important thing to learn. First of all, let's talk about some of the most common utensils that you can use and some of the more fancy utensils that you can buy online from one of your favourite fast online purveyors that does not respect the rights of their workers. First of all, we've just got a standard 2B pencil. Pencils are fine. You can use these for transferring. They do not stay permanently, but they can take a while to wear off your fabric. If you are sewing over your embroidery design completely, then it doesn't really matter if you use a pencil, and it's your cheapest, most accessible option, okay? Or you could use one of these fantastic pens, and this is one of my favorites. It's a heat reactive pen. So when you write on something or you draw on a piece of fabric and the tip of it is beautifully smooth. So with fabric, you get a little bit of texture mostly, unless you're drawing on something like nylon. These are really good. You then can draw your design on it, and if you make a mistake, it's okay. You don't need to get too upset about it because you can use an iron or a hairdryer to get rid of the design, because when this gets warm, the ink disappears. We have here a disappearing ink pen. It's a temporary marker. It is specifically for fabrics, though the way that it works on different fabrics varies because of the weave and the makeup of the fabrics. So if you've got something like nylon, it can bleed a little bit because of the way that the fibers are just kind of so fine. And if you've got something that's a little coarser like this is just a piece of cotton, and it's shirt cotton. it will make a little bit more of a reduced design, and I'm just going to draw a line so that you can see that that's what it looks like, and it will disappear. So if your design is incredibly intricate, I would not use this because it's going to take you a while to complete that design, and by the end of it your design might have disappeared, a lot like your rights as a human being, so be careful about that. Finally, we have a chalk pencil. I bought this especially because I thought that I would need ideally one of these. You can draw on light, darker colour fabric with this. So if you see here, I have a nice dark colour, and then you can put the chalk line there, if you can see. The light in here is not too bright, so it's difficult to see. These are very useful because they are chalk, so you can rub them off. Here's my cat. Because I am a witch, that's it is insisted that we have at least one cat in our house. We have this for temporary designs as well. It comes off super easily, and I'm going to say be careful with it as well, the same as you would be with the disappearing ink, because it is very temporary. And so if you have a more intricate design, it comes off with friction. And so what happens is if you start to mess with your design a lot, if it takes you a long time to do it, the natural friction of handling it and rubbing the fabric means that this could come off. Alternatively, you can use a white pencil, which is for colouring. These are ideal for light coloured fabrics with the exception of the chalk marker. Now, when you have a piece of fabric to transfer your design onto, it's often recommended that you use something called a light box. Now, if you've done a lot of art and stuff, you might know what that is. It's a box, literally, with a light underneath and a flat top, and you turn the light on, put your design that might presumably be on paper, and then your fabric or your other piece on top, you trace the design, and there you have it. But light boxes are really expensive and they take up space. So what we want to do is find something that can be an alternative to a light box, and what is frequently suggested is a window. So you would hold this up to a window, though I've got one right in front of me, and you put the design on the window, and I recommend taping it, and then you put this on top, and you're going to do that vertically, and you can also tape this with a little bit of masking tape or artist tape. Then you can trace your design with your chosen pen or pencil. But if you have a really detailed design, that's difficult because it's going to take a long time to do. It's not natural for us to kind of draw that way for a long time. So I recommend, if you really, really don't want to do it that way, and I very rarely do, I'll be honest, you can just make sure that your fabric is pale enough to see through when you put it down on your design, and you can just literally do it over your fabric. Some fabrics this works really well with. This one is fine because it's light coloured and quite thin. Lots of muslins will work that way. Thicker linens don't work so well that way, so you have to come up with another solution for that. Then we're going to come to designs that are specifically for darker designs, which we have here. One of the cheapest, most accessible ways of doing this is to get your design, trace it onto tracing paper or indeed greaseproof paper with a pencil, and then, as I have done here, we put the design that we've traced over our fabric, and the fabric is over the inner circle of an embroidery hoop, and then to keep it in place we've put this on top. What is the disadvantage of this? Well, it's really crinkly, it's quite fragile. As you can see, I ripped it here. When you sew through it, it's really noisy, and as we've established, women should be seen and not heard. Indeed, anybody should be seen and not heard. In fact, maybe not seen. And so we want to be surreptitious, don't we? We don't want to disturb the status quo that's telling us that we don't get to make our own choices about our body, and we don't get to go out of the house feeling safe. So what we need to do is make sure that we're very quiet. So this is not an ideal situation when we become handmaidens and oppressed by the patriarchy. But alternatively, you can use this stuff, and again, my camera is sliding because it is full of sadness for our current world. This is a dissolvable medium that you can also use. You put it onto your fabric the same way you would with tracing paper, you have already traced on it, you'd have to use something like a Sharpie because it is a kind of plasticky fabric or plasticky medium, whatever you want to call it. You might use a Sharpie or if a felt tip pen will stay on it. I haven't tried felt tip pens, I usually use a Sharpie. So we put that over it and we trace the design over and put it over our hoop and then sew it. So that's another option. You don't need a light source for it either, the same with the tracing paper, and it is quieter. When you are done, you're going to take this plastic that has been put onto your fabric and that you've sewn through, and you will submerge it in water. A lot like when women were drowned when they were accused of being witches. When in fact, a lot of the times, they were just clever herbalists, midwives, or people just trying to, live their own lives. So then when you've submerged it in water, this dissolves away like our hopes and dreams might potentially. And then you end up with your beautiful design later. Another thing you can use is this. Now, if you have a printer at home, this is fabric that has been backed by paper. This is the paper side. This is the fabric side. And if your design is sort of the suitable dimensions, you can use this. You print your design on it and then you can just peel it off the paper and sew it. I've done this with embroidered photographs. You might see them on my website. And the only disadvantage to this is you're limited by the size and the dimensions of the paper. So if it's a particularly big or wide design, then it may not work so well for you. It could potentially end up being quite an expensive option if you're doing this a lot. These work out at just over $1 a piece. Now that's quite a lot for fabric, considering that I have been able to buy secondhand fabric for literally $1 for yards and yards of the stuff. So I don't recommend it necessarily if you're going to do it on a regular basis. However, if you're going to do it to create a piece that's sort of mixed media and you want to put some like really cool illustrations or photos that you found online, then yeah, it's great for that. The other thing is it's not washable. So if you put this, if you have like a really great design and then you put it on a bag or something and you wash it, the ink is going to come off. You're going to have to treat the design afterwards with a medium so it doesn't run. The final one that we're going to talk about is this stuff, which is a type of transfer paper. And this one is blue. You can get them in lots of different colours. Yellow is a good one if you're using it on dark fabric. A bit like tracing paper, you put it over a design on paper. I've used it for things that I've drawn myself that I then want to use in an embroidery or in a fibre art situation. This is the piece that you put down onto whatever you're transferring, okay? So that you then have the design transferred onto this paper. It's a cool way of doing it. I really enjoy using that. And so these are some of the ways that you can transfer your designs.